Hi, my name is Dr. Nalin Wickramasurian. I've been offering one-to-one coaching for doctors looking to try and improve their chances at medical interviews or consultant interviews for many years now. And one of the things I've noticed for many of my students is that they forget to plan their answers. And so what happens then is they tend to produce just to blurt out the first thing that comes into their mind. So I'll give them a question and they'll entertain a thought, and then just quickly that will just come out. And then they have to think of another thought, and then that just comes out. And then they kind of wonder why they're a bit lost and not quite sure what the question was, and then they panic. And that's very common. And the key strategy to get out of that really is to try and plan your answers well. So by planning, I mean think about what you want to try and say, and entertain all of that. So work all of that out before you open your mouth. Okay, so I'm going to give you a plan that might help you. It's going to be a generic plan, and obviously my individual coaching we go into much more personalized sort of strategies, but this may just help you. Now, I think of planning as I think of thinking as being a key part of trying to do well in your interviews. So I always tell people that unless you're coming up against a superstar, it's the person that outthinks the panel and outthinks the opposition that gets the job. So even if you're not the internal candidate, or even if you're up against people who are just slightly, maybe a year or so ahead of you, maybe they've got some consultant experience and you haven't, if you can outthink them, then you have a chance. And why that's particularly true in medical interviews is that as medics, we tend not to think. We tend to be a bit too lazy to think. And we tend to want to study. Okay, so when we're in a stressful situation, we'll tend to want to read things. So most medics, when they're looking to try and prepare for an interview, will end up downloading, 10, 20, 30 PDFs and just reading PDFs and believing that that's the way to prepare for an interview. But it really isn't. It's not that kind of preparation. You have to be aware of what you've got in your candidacy, and you have to be aware of what the people there need. And then you have to understand ways in which you can explain to them how you can deliver what they want from your candidacy. So again, it's difficult to try and talk about that in any real meaningful way, because I'd really need to personalize that for you. But when I'm talking about planning, I want you to think about 3 questions first. And the first question of that is, you must think, what's this question about? Okay. After that, you need to think, what could I sell in response to this question? And the third question is, well, which structure will I choose? Okay, and I've deliberately designed those questions with particular words, particular verbs, and in a particular order. I want you to think not about the structure first, because a lot of people come to me having been taught by other people to have a structure first, and then to fit the content to suit the structure, and then just hope that it has some bearing on the question that was being offered to them. What I've noticed recently over the last kind of 18 months or so is that interview panels are just changing the words subtly, but in a way that means that you're kind of put slightly off balance if you're going to come in with a predetermined script. So the first question in your head has to be, what's this question about? I will explore these questions in more detail in subsequent videos, but really what you're trying to do is, with that question, is try and understand what's the topic of discussion here. The second question, of what could you sell in response to this question, is really trying to work out, well, if that's the topic of discussion, what am I going to talk about? And the third question then deals with, well, how am I going to deliver that content to the panel? Okay, so you think about the topic, then the content, and then the style, in that order. And the reason why you need to do it in that order is because that's the way the human mind works. Okay, it doesn't work the other way. It doesn't work from the structure first. It works from the topic, and then the content, and then the structure. So develop the discipline to plan your answers. Okay, and initially it will feel a bit clumsy, and initially you might feel worried that you're going to have too much of a gap before you start talking. And at the start, because you'll be slow at planning and slow at thinking, you may well have quite a long gap. But if you don't plan your answers, you risk producing information that's not related to the question, or delivering your content in a sort of haphazard and unstructured way, and pausing after you've started talking anyway. So when you get better at the skill, you will take shorter lengths of time to plan your answers. But I'd urge you just to develop the discipline to plan your answers properly. And in subsequent videos, we're going to explore those planning questions so that you kind of understand more about this strategy. So I'd invite you to just click on one of these links that are coming up here, just to try and get to the next video. Take care. Bye.